The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 116.
One day, I shall come back.
That's it. I've been renewed.
Is when a Time Lord's body wears out, he regenerates.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity.
Bravehearty.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding.
Physician, that's wearing a bit thin.
Fantastic.
I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the fourth Doctor story, the Tom Baker story, The Sontaran Experiment. Joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going, Dom?
Great. So, folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook, where our Facebook page is facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can retweet it on Twitter, where it's we're at SQPN. You can leave us comments on the show, get us some feedback. We love to hear from you. We love to discuss your feedback on the show and share it with the rest of the audience. So please send us your feedback. And if you have not yet done so, please subscribe in iTunes, on Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, on your favorite podcast app. I like Overcast. I know a lot of people like Pocket Cast. Those are some good podcast apps. If you like to listen to it on YouTube, where you could hit the bell to make sure you get notifications when we post a new episode. And above all, please share the podcast with your friends as we continue to go through the depths of the library of Doctor Who that's available. We're continuing this journey for a long time to come, and we'd love to have others join us on this journey of Doctor Who. So we're talking today about the Sontaran Experiment, which is a two-part story from the
short one,
Tom Baker era. Yeah, I gather it was sort of an insertion into the
schedule.
The schedule to kind of fill in some space. I think they had.
Well, it's there was something I saw on the Wikia where the producer didn't like the big 6-episode serials because they felt too stretched out. Which has been a complaint that we've made.
Yes, we've
on
said
this
something about
podcast
that,
quite a few times. So instead, they did the 4-episode of Ark of Space, and then this for 2-episode instead of the full 6-episode, which actually worked a lot better. Of course, it's funny to think about because this 2-episode serial we just watched is basically the same length as one episode in New Who.
Right.
But these are also two 25-minute episodes.
Right. And it's essentially a continuation of the 4-episode Ark in Space, thus making that 6 episodes. But it is standalone.
With a radical plot shift, because the Ark in Space was all about the Ark people reviving and then discovering that some of them had been infected by this wasp-like alien called a Weirin. Yep. And now that that's sorted out, where we join the Doctor here is he's transporting down from the Ark to the empty Earth to fix their transmat system so they can recolonize Earth and come off the Ark.
Right. So before we get off the discussion of how the length of it, this is the shortest story of the 1970s, as pointed out. So I
think Black Orchid is the next 2-parter we get, and that's in the 5th Doctor's era.
Right. So one little interesting production note is that Tom Baker broke his collarbone during the shooting of this, and had to wear a neck brace that was covered by the scarf. But it did. I tried to look for it, and I didn't see anywhere where it looked like he was favoring it. So kudos to Tom Baker for. In fact, it was bad enough when. What was that?
I was going to say, good thing they had that nice big scarf that they could wrap around his neck to cover it.
Well, and it was bad enough at first that they thought they were going to have to recast the Doctor, because again, this is the beginning of his tenure as the Doctor. We're only a few episodes into his time here, and they thought, well, we're going to have to recast it already, but it turned out he was able to power through.
Well, this This is the first of a couple of times where he had injuries or something. When they were filming The Pirate Planet, his cat attacked him, and so he had a big scar right over his lip from that. I think he had a couple other injuries on set throughout his era as Doctor.
He must be quite a klutz. The other interesting production note is that this was shot entirely on location and on videotape instead of film,
real cost saver.
Yes.
Because it's all outside, and they're reusing Sontaran props from the Time Warrior. So
and there's no other sets. I mean, this is basically just outdoors with a few of those props. Yeah.
I thought there were a couple of scenes that looked like they might have been green screened, but maybe it was just an artifact of the videotape footage where it looked like, they had this backdrop of a mountain or something, but then the actor was just standing in front of a green screen.
I don't know if they might have had to do it for reshoots. They might have had to do some reshoots.
That's what I wonder.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like you said, Jimmy, this picks up from the end of Ark in Space with the Doctor and the companions transmatting down from Space Station Nerva to repair the transmat reflectors, and they land in this
which are like a series of 8 metal spheres arranged in a circle.
Right.
And it's kind of a rough landing.
Yeah, yes. They kind of fade in and out. The Doctor fading in while
one
Harry,
at a time.
Yeah, one at a time. It's
poor Sarah ends up falling on her pride, shall we say. Dignity.
Yes.
That's the way she put it.
Let's go, old girl. Harry keeps calling her old girl.
Old thing. I love the interaction. He's got this wonderful gentlemanly PG Woodhouse, Jeeves and Worcester type affect, and he's like, are you okay, old thing? And he means it totally affectionately. And even though she's a feminist, her response is, Harry, I'm not a thing. And it's like blew right past the old part. So Sarah's not worried about ageism, just thingism. Right.
I am not an object. She says that she landed right on her dignity is how she phrased it. So then we have this unspoiled countryside. The Earth has been abandoned for 10,000 years, and I think you and I have talked about in Mysterious World, Jimmy. We might, or maybe in like one of the mysterious headlines, this idea that if over the span of thousands of years, 10,000 years, or even longer, all signs of human habitation would eventually wear away. That you could imagine
subduct or something. Yeah.
Right. And so where they're standing is essentially would have been the middle of London, but it's this open plain of land.
One question I do have, I've never visited London. I'd love to. I would love to go spend an extended period of time traveling around the UK, especially London. But I get the impression that London itself is relatively flat. But yeah, this is fairly rugged territory that they chose to film this in.
But over certainly millions of years, and quicker if you have catastrophes like, I don't know, maybe giant solar flares that scorch the Earth's surface, you can have uplift and get mountains and stuff where you didn't before.
Yeah,
right. This is supposedly 10,000 years after the solar flare, as I recall, so from Ark of Space.
Yeah, it's something like 30,000 years in our future or something like that.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be normal uplift, but it could be produced by, various things, including just weathering.
Yeah, I guess if you combine the solar flare, killing off everything on Earth, and then just natural erosion and everything, perhaps.
Right, yeah.
So
because once a large chunk of the biosphere dies, you're not going to have the roots holding soil in place and stuff.
And then, of course, those our UK listeners and those who have been to London can help us understand what London's train is really like.
Right.
Yeah. It's got a river running right there, and it's down in the southeast, so close to the shore, so it's all going to be low anyway.
It's a flood. At least downtown London is a floodplain.
Yeah.
So,
but as a result of all this, since they have no reason to suspect that there's anyone down on Earth at this point, and since the Doctor needs to do a technical task fixing the transmat that Harry and Sarah are totally unsuited for, it makes all the sense in the world. We have reasonable companion separation for once.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no reason to suspect danger. I need to do this task. You can't help me. Get out of here. Go explore.
Yeah,
exactly.
go take
so
a look
they go
around.
2 different directions.
Yeah, go to Trafalgar Square. And as should be that way, as the doctor says, and if this is Piccadilly anyway. And so they wander off, and then of course Harry goes and gets himself falling into a trap that someone has set. Yes, a pit trap. It looks pretty steep, I guess, and he bangs his head pretty good. So that's not good. And so Sarah has to go back to get the doctor.
And we learned there are astronauts present on the planet.
Right.
Who dug the pit trap.
Yes, spacesuited humans. One of them is chased by a robot, and the doctor finds him dead at the bottom of a cliff. And then the doctor gets stunned by this guy's companions who think that he's responsible for this guy's death. I'm not sure why they would think the doctor was responsible.
I don't know, because there's the scary robot drone that could have killed him,
right.
which is what they've been running from.
Exactly.
And the scary robot drone, by the way, this is a great 1970s robot drone.
Yes.
It looks completely ridiculous, and it has this kind of, it's kind of like a big angular metallic bug with little antennas that it's using as pincers, pincers on it, where its mouth would be. But they're just kind of like TV antennas. Yeah, it's very rickety. And I just love the robot drone.
It definitely looked influenced by the NASA probes of the time, because there's a lot of that kind of that same look.
Right. I remember an episode of The $6 Million Man where they had a lunar probe that went rogue on planet Earth, and it was the same sort of thing where it was all rickety, and as it moved, bits of it would bounce very like it's about to fall. Like, get some more duct tape on that between shots, that sort of thing. And that's what I was getting from this one. So
this is definitely showing the budget of the BBC for Doctor Who at the time. That's for sure.
Yes. So after getting the doctor back to their camp, one of these spacesuited humans threatens the doctor with a smoking stick. And like, what are you going to rub ash on his face? Make his jacket messy? It was just kind of like it was supposed to be like a burning stick, and it's just kind of like smoking, like it has gone out. Get the prop man on that one. Get it burning next time.
I like how the astronauts don't believe in that Nerva exists.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's a legend. That's like Atlantis or something. And it's like, you guys just came here from distant space. You didn't see it in orbit?
Right. It was, I mean, if Nerva is there, I mean, maybe that's how Nerva survived for so long, is that
maybe it's cloaked or
it's
something.
Cloaked of some sort. Yeah. So meanwhile, this other astronaut who's a bit jumpy and a little not all there, Roth, he saves Sarah from the robot and explains that he escaped from the alien in the rocks, as he puts it. And so meanwhile, these humans, the other guys, don't believe that the doctor came by transmat, and they say they're from another colony called Galsec. And in fact, we're led to believe that while the people on Nerva were stuck there for 10,000 years, the rest of humanity has gone and expanded out into the galaxy. And
they kind of have an attitude about it. It's like, we didn't sleep it out. We went out and built an empire. So take that, you slackers.
Right. I know, nice attitude on him. So the doctor does notice on one of the guys, Varul, that there's a camera on his spacesuit that's not human tech.
Virl.
And he kind of points it out, or tries to point it out, and then they tell him that their ship came to Earth because of a distress signal, but when they landed, their ship was vaporized, and then suddenly they believe the doctor. Like, just before, they were thinking the doctor was lying to them about this legendary Nerva, and now suddenly we get this shift where they believe the doctor about Nerva. And I'm like, well, why do
That's when the attitude comes out.
Yeah. Well, while you guys were sleeping on Nerva, because they think the doctor was one of the people from Nerva. And then there's not a whole lot of going on. I have to kind of point that out. It's like we kind of jump from scene to scene, where there's some exposition, then we're to the next scene. We get to a point where the doctor falls. Harry has managed to find a little cave.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, before we completely leave, the camera that is that's on Verl's spacesuit.
Yep.
It indeed does not look like a typical camera in the 1970s. It looks like a little metallic game piece. It's kind of like a little stud,
right?
That's on the front. You could mistake it for something that could be part of his uniform, and it doesn't have an obvious lens on it, and so that it makes some sense as the kind of surreptitious camera you would want to plant on somebody if you had like tagged them and released them, which is apparently what's happened to Verl. And we get reverse angle shots of the Doctor looking into the camera, and then we pull back and see the alien Sontaran hand, which for some reason has 4 fingers instead of 3.
Yep.
In a control center, so we have it very clearly established visually that Verl is being monitored like a piece of wildlife.
Right, right, and they these astronauts they do manage to let the Doctor get away, and that's how
Sarah helps.
Yeah, Sarah shows up while they're not paying attention. She helps them escape, and meanwhile, while Sarah was looking for the Doctor to come help Harry wakes up. And he finds a cave and crawls through it out the other end to the rocks, but basically this outcropping where the Sontaran, we'll find out, it has been. And I'm trying to kind of piece it together, but.
Yeah, so Sarah ends up getting to the rocks too, and she sees the Sontaran ship, which is a big sphere. It looks kind of like Epcot Center.
Yeah.
And it's a prop I believe they just had left over from the Time Warrior, which was Sarah Jane's first adventure with the Doctor. And so her very first adventure was with the Sontarans going back to the Middle Ages. And so when the Sontaran comes out of his ship and takes off his helmet, Sarah immediately knows what he is, but she misidentifies him. She thinks it's the same Sontaran she says she's met before and says Lynx, which was the name of that Sontaran. Right. And
because they're clones.
Because they're clones, even though this is clearly a different Sontaran mask. And instead of being Lynx, this one is Field Major Steyer.
Okay. So let's talk a little about the Sontaran. So the first time we saw them was in Time Warrior, is that correct?
Yes.
And so this is now the second appearance. So what was their backstory originally? What was
They're a clone warrior race. They're very military. They have this endless war going on with the Rutans, if I recall correctly. And we'll actually meet the Rutans in an upcoming episode, The Horror of Fang Rock, which we'll be doing soon. But they have this endless war going with them, and basically they want to conquer the universe. So they're periodically messing with stuff, and here in this century, they're trying to conquer human space. So Field Major Steyer is running experiments on these astronauts to figure out what tactical advantages can we gain for our invasion.
Okay. So Sarah and this astronaut Roth are captured and, like you said, taken to there. And Harry arrives just as they get to this Sontaran base. And Steyer ends up killing Roth. He says he doesn't need him anymore. Roth had escaped from him in the past. He's
much more interested in the female.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Even though he's already said she has no military significance. So not sure what's up with that.
It's just creepy.
One of the things that it is creepy, and one of the things that I was really reminded of once we got to this point in the plot, because so the Sontarans, I mean, it's basically they have this suit with like a helmet, and then he's up in these rocks, and he's got a monitor where he talks to another Sontaran reporting on the status of what he's learned in preparation for this invasion. And he's got these like last surviving humans on this desolated world and he's not just killing them and being done with it. And this so much reminded me of the terrible B movie from like the 50s, Robot Monster. if you've ever seen Robot Monster, it's just like this. You have this guy. He's an alien. He's in a gorilla suit with a diving helmet on, and he's got a monitor just like this in a little cave in the rocks that he's talking to his superior on. And for some reason, he's not killing all of the remaining humans in the apocalyptic, desolated world. And he's really interested in this one woman. And he is a Roman. That's his species name, as opposed to a human. And it's a classic, awful B movie. It's very famous, and I just couldn't help thinking of Robot Monster throughout this whole segment.
That's
now
funny.
the important question is: is there a Mystery Science Theater 3000 version of it, or Riff Tracks, one of the two?
I'm sure I would. I don't think there's an MST3K version. I would bet there's a Riff Tracks.
Oh wow!
Because that'd be the way to watch it.
So the sad thing about this, not to bring everything down, but
there is an MST3K of Robot Monster, which you can also get at Riff Tracks.
Okay,
excellent.
So the actor who plays Major Steyr is Kevin Lindsay. He was in Time Warrior. He played the original Sontaran, and they were going to use the same costume. They ended up having to make a new one for him because it exacerbated a heart condition apparently that this actor had. An illness that eventually would kill him only 6 months later, which is really sad after the filming of this. But I can imagine that is not a comfortable costume to be wearing. It looked difficult to deal with, and so we have this Sontaran experimenting on the various people, like basically tying them out exposing them in the environment and torturing them. You have Harry bumbling around the rocks. Sarah, old girl, are you here? Hey, Harry.
Thing.
Yeah. How about some stealth, Harry? Keep it down a little bit. He does find one of the Galsec guys, but he can't release him.
And this guy's like being driven to death by thirst.
Right. Harry does get him something to drink, but obviously not enough. Still too little, too late. But and then this Sontaran refuses to believe that Sarah is from Earth. He says she's a mistake in the data and must be eliminated, and thus is going to delay his final report, which is a lucky turn of events. It delays the invasion.
And he slaps this mind reading thing on her forehead.
Right. Tests her fear responses with a series of illusions, snakes and other scary bits. He then stuns the doctor who comes, although he thinks he's killed the doctor.
And before that, there's a great moment where the doctor and Steyr are like having a confrontation, and the doctor just looks past Steyr and says, "Oh, well done, Harry," causing, even though Harry's not there, causing Steyr to turn around, and the doctor momentarily escapes.
Yeah, what's that over your shoulder?
Yeah,
exactly.
But, oh, well done, Harry is not the classic. What's that over there?
Yeah.
So we get the reveal that Vrul is a traitor and a turncoat turned by the Sontaran. The promise of being spared the upcoming invasion and all that, which he is then. It turns out that the Sontaran betrays him and doesn't spare him. And
with the doctor and Sarah out of commission, Harry is alone to deal with the situation now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Although when Harry does find the doctor reveals that he's not dead, that he was saved by
it was a piece of the shielding, I think, from that force field that put around Sarah.
Piece of metal.
Yeah.
And so it's the equivalent of a cigarette case in his pocket that saved him.
Never throw anything away, Harry.
And then it's immediately contrary advice, Father.
It's a mistake to clutter one's pockets, Harry. Yeah. And both times Harry's like, "Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor."
Right. So because he's looking for his 500-year diary in his pocket that he can't find because he has some notes on the Sontarans. And then the doctor discovers that the Sontaran plan is to invade the galaxy.
I like Steyr. He's after the chained up guy has died. Steyer's taking his field notes, and he says subject died in around a week. And it's like, from lack of water, really? I think you can go longer than that without water, but but maybe not. But then Steyer says dependence on fluid is a significant weakness that should be exploited in our attack. It's like, how? Deny the humans coffee breaks?
Yeah. No soup for you. So
yeah.
So then he's testing these Varul and these other two guys by having them hold 600 pounds of weight off of their comrade's chest, all the minutes at a time.
A variable gravity bar, so he can increase its weight, and he's progressively making it heavier up to about 600 pounds. And they're struggling to hold it off Varul's chest to keep from crushing him, which Steyer is amazed at. Even though he was a traitor, they're still struggling to not kill him.
Right. And what amazes me is how long those two guys, even between the two of them, can hold 600 pounds in the air.
I think by the time they get it up that high, Harry and Sarah have joined them in holding it up.
Oh, I hope so. Because that was that was a lot of weight. Yeah. And then so
there was one scene where you could see the actors were getting bored with holding it, so they both had their elbows down on the rock.
Yes. Someone forgot to tell them action lift.
Yeah, exactly.
So the doctor's solution is to use the Sontaran's aggressive nature, warrior nature against him. He challenges him to a fight.
Single combat.
Which he hopes will use up the Sontaran's reserves of energy, forcing him to go back to his ship, which Harry has sabotaged.
Yeah, and apparently humans in this show can survive for around a week without fluid, but Steyer cannot survive more than a few minutes on his power reserves because he quickly runs out and starts getting tired.
Right.
Well, they do kind of explain it where, he's not used to Earth standard gravity. So
yes,
it was harder for him to operate.
And he's not a frontline soldier, even though apparently all Sontarans are warriors.
You guys are making excuses for sloppy writing.
Yes, we are. So
also, this fight that ensues between Tom Baker and Steyer is, I think, one of the things that really doomed Harry on this show. Because Harry was originally included to be the young action man figure like Ian, because they thought they were going to have an older doctor. And then they cast Tom Baker, who at this point was the youngest doctor who had ever been cast.
Yep.
And he could do all the young man stuff, and having him be able to do this perfectly fine fight here is like, well, what do we need to pay, the guy who plays Harry for?
With a broken collarbone, by the way.
Yeah, well, they did have a stand-in, I think, for this, though. Because you don't ever get a good close-up on Tom Baker's face. And there's a couple of scenes where it looks like a stand-in.
Yeah. And there's a couple of these swings. It's a very much a stage fight. It doesn't look all that realistic in some of the times, but which is the par for the era. I mean, that's what you see in everything. But Harry... What was gruesome was the fate of the Sontaran here. I mean, the doctor sets him up for. So what this device does is when the sabotage, instead of absorbing energy from the ship, it reverses it, and it sucks the energy out of him, and it turns him into a little deflating balloon.
His head collapses.
Oh, the body does, yeah.
And the doctor sent Harry to do this. So Harry gets to use the sonic screwdriver to open the Sontaran spaceship pod and get in there and mess with the equipment. And he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just, the doctor has told him to do this. And so the doctor uses Harry as an unwitting assassin.
Yep.
Yes. It's kind of the doctor as a bit brutal, it's one of those moments when you realize the doctor is not human and has different moral standards than humans do.
And none of this, ooh, guns are always bad stuff.
Right,
no.
right.
No.
So once Steyer is taken care of, the doctor goes to the communications device where the Sontaran marshal is on the monitor demanding Steyer's report. And the doctor says, he says, "What is this?" When he sees the doctor, and the doctor says, "It's your Waterloo, Marshal." And he basically bluffs him into saying, "One move across the buffer zone and your entire fleet will be destroyed." and then they fall for it. And
I wonder how much of a bluff it is, considering how easily these astronauts and Harry and Sarah and the Doctor defeated this warrior.
right. And the Doctor, like when you turns to Harry and says, "Hey, I think it's brinksmanship." I think they call it, which was you know, of course, a topical idea at the time in the mid 70s,
Cold War.
Yes. Yep. So and then we end with the Doctor finishing fixing the transmat reflectors, and saying to the surviving astronauts that we sure you won't join us on our way back up to Nerva. And the astronauts wisely say we don't trust those transmat beams, especially given that they disappear and reappear randomly when they're in it. And that's it. Then they vanish. The Doctor and Harry and Sarah vanish from the planet.
And
back
of course,
to Nerva.
the next episode is Genesis of the Daleks, which we've already talked about.
Yep, that's right.
So they don't make it back up to Nerva yet. They get intercepted in the middle of this transmat by the Time Lords to take them back to ancient Skaro and effectively launch the first salvo in the Time War by trying to undo the Genesis of the Daleks.
Right, and so
if only they known.
Yeah. So when do I would recommend people go back to when did we do that? Genesis of the Daleks. We did that back when it was released in theaters. So like we did I think last June, didn't we?
Genesis. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was. It was one of our earlier. When we look back, Classic Who.
One of our first Classic Who's.
Oh, in fact, it was a year ago. It was in February of 2018.
Do you have the episode number?
It's episode 62.
Okay.
So go check that out, and you can hear that next one, and then we'll be coming back. And I do want to kind of mention now what we're one of the things we're planning on doing is, given that the Fourth Doctor's corpus of work is larger than every other Doctor combined. We realize that by going from Doctor to Doctor to Doctor,
twice the size of almost every other Doctor.
Right. We'll finish all the other Doctors long before we've gotten through all of the Fourth Doctor stuff. So we're going to be doubling up on Fourth Doctor episodes. So when we come back and forth on the.
But we're going to sequence them so they're not right next to each other.
Right. So we'll still have a bit of a separation. Between them, so we're just trying to spread things out so that there's plenty of Doctor Who to talk about, but we want to kind of spread it out so that we're covering the whole thing fairly equally. So, did any last notes from you, Jimmy, on this, or Father Corey?
Just one small thing. A couple of times the Doctor mentions the central line. Of course, Harry disappeared from the pit, and he must have gotten into the central line of the London Underground, the tube. It includes a very interesting stop. If the modern day central line, Perryvale.
Oh,
Perryvale
really?
is the home of
Ace,
the seventh Doctor companion, Ace.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But it's when you look at the tube map, it's the red line that, not a shock, is in the center of the map. It runs right through the center of London.
It's the central
and
line.
The Doctor had already had experiences with the London Underground at this point, because back in the second Doctor's time, we had the Yeti, who invaded under the influence of the Great Intelligence, who invaded the London Underground.
That's right. So we do have a bit of feedback. Our friend Matt from Ithaca sent us an email. And he's this is his feedback on the Sensorites episode that we just did. And he says, I've just listened to your discussion of the Sensorites, and you mentioned the 10th Doctor callback to Susan's description of Gallifrey, but you overlooked a more explicit reference in another story. In Series 4's Planet of the Ood, the Doctor and Donna travel to the Ood's home planet, which we learn is called the Ood Sphere. And the Doctor comments there, I've been to the solar system before years ago, ages, close to the planet Sensphere. And the broad similarity between the facial features of the Sensorites and of the Ood was a deliberate choice in the latter's design, and it seems that the two species were neighbors.
Yep.
So,
well, we mentioned that. We just didn't mention this specific reference.
That's right. So, but thank you, Matt, for giving us the fuller reference to that. We do appreciate that. So that's it for this episode, where we talk about the Sontaran experiment. Before we go, I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who. Today, we want to thank by name Dawn H., Sarah K., John G., Edward C., and Ryan R. through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give. They make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows we do at sqpn.com. So you could join them if you'd like by visiting sqpn.com/give. So let us know what you thought of this Fourth Doctor story, the Sontaran experiment. You can do so by visiting sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page and leave us some feedback there, or send us an email to doctorwho@sqpn.com. You can find links to all of our personal social media and our websites on our show notes at sqpn.com. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the 10th Doctor story, 42, which was the first story written by current showrunner Chris Chibnall. Until then, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Glad to be here, and thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thanks so much, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, I'm a horologist, actually, and a chronometrist. I just love clocks. Atomic clocks, wall quartz clocks, and grandfather clocks.
Right. This is going to be fun.